I think we're all here. Juan is here, Bartek is here, Milton is there, Robert is there, everyone is here. Okay. So we have quite a few interesting questions to, oh, we need to do interpretation here. Didn't do this yet. Yeah. So we have quite a few interesting questions to do, and I'll try to get through quite a few of them. We're into a new year, so new beginnings in all kinds of ways. The chaos of samsara continues. That's never going to be new and fresh. So our issue is always not to get distracted by the busyness which is all around us. Okay, so the first question is, should we be doing a Yidam practice as well as Padmasambhava practice? So, well, Padmasambhava can be a Yidam practice. Yidam means the deity which your mind is going to depend on and rely on. Although there are many, many different Dharma teachings, our time is short. Just keeping life together in the modern world takes up a lot of energy. So the Yidam is a practice where you unify your mind with the deity as a way of recognizing the true status of your own mind. In terms of the Yidam practice, the main focus is on, firstly, in a dualistic way, receiving the blessing of the Yidam, and secondly, completely identifying with the Yidam so that every experience becomes inseparable from the Yidam. And then thirdly, to be able to dissolve everything which is inseparable from the deity into the ground openness. So the Yidam or Padmasambhava, these are methods by which we realize or we awaken to the fact that there are no separate entities at all. What we experience is the radiance of the mind. So that's explained in so many books and so many texts. The main thing to begin with we need is devotion. Every day you have many encouragements to take life seriously, to believe in the power of real objects outside yourself. So this is our luck. We are born in a culture which is very materialistic. So the Yidam allows us to focus our mindful attention with the emotional strength of devotion in order to antidote the power of duality. The next question is, can you explain the Khandro Gadgyang chöd? There are many chöd or cutting practices. Khandro Gadgyang is a very famous one from Jigme Lingpa. The function of the chöd is to cut off or sever or separate you from your attachment to the body. In particular, the self-cherishing, the way we protect our body as being something very special. The problem here is the sense of the body being a thing. We're going to die. The mind will leave the body. Our life began with our mind in the form of a condensed consciousness entering into the male and female essences of our parents. Our life is dependent on movement, on energy, on pulsation. And yet it's very tempting to think of my body as something that I have. So the body is a very important site for opening oneself to be the instantly presencing energy which is co-emergent. That is to say, subject and object arise together. You live in a field of unfolding experience. If you bend down to tie your shoelaces, a whole new world of the carpet or the floor is revealed to you. As you turn your body, you see something new, something new. It's not that I see these things in a different way. Rather, it's that my projection of thingness, my belief in substantial entities, cuts this embodied aspect of the world off from all the other aspects of the world. We take food and liquid in from the environment, we breathe in, breathe out, and our bodies are constituted of the same elements and ingredients as the things around us. There are many aspects in this chöd practice, but the central point is always to free us from the fused identification with this, our present body. Between being overprotective of our body and the other extreme of being an ascetic and punishing the body, the middle way is to be present with the body as the ceaseless flow of experience. In the pure Sambhogakaya realm of the world that you inhabit, your body is the Nirmanakaya, moving as energy in the field of energy. This is simply how it is. But the truth of our own presence is hidden from us by our own belief in being some substantial entity. So that is what the chöd practice is designed to cut through. So this is quite a long question. Somebody who has been able to take some time out so that they don't have to work for a period of time and they can just devote themselves fully to the practice. And they've been focusing on resting in open awareness. And they trust this open presence of awareness. So what they want to know is, should they start to look for a job or to trust that all that is needed will arrive? And I don't know what country the person who wrote this was living in, but generally speaking, modern life is quite punishing if you have extreme poverty. Most of us have to work to earn money. But of course, our central understanding is not to go into polarities. Retreat is good, working is bad. Work means subject moving in a world of possibilities. Whether you work in an office or a shop or a factory, moment by moment, your posture, your gesture, your tone of voice is being attuned into interaction with objects, whether they're heavy or light, or people. Sometimes it seems that we are in charge of the situation, we are making things happen. At other times, there are deadlines we have to meet, and so we are the servant of particular kinds of tasks. In any situation, all we have is energy moving in a field of energy. Energy has many flavors like happy, sad, tired, energized, excited, depressed. These arise and pass as in the various movements of how we participate. So it's important to find some time to sit and to try to be with your naked mind itself, and to see that everything is arising as the movement of energy in the space of the mind. And then going to work is simply an extension of being present with the unfolding of energy. Although Rigpa awareness, the mind itself, never moves, we are the movement of the mind. So if you recognize your ground is the open, empty essence, your field is the ceaseless clarity of the unfolding of the energy of rays of light and sound and so on, and that your embodied presence is the ceaseless flow of kindness or responsiveness or communication. And this is, as the text says, all pervading. So if you're going to work, you might have to get in a car or go on a bus or walk or cycle. Many different visions arise in front of you and all around you. Many different sounds, excuse me, of traffic and children and dogs. And all of this you are with. So when you're present, you are constantly refreshed in this ceaseless flow of bright experience. Well, of course, we have our own habit formations. Generally speaking, if possible, it's good to have an occupation where you feel that you are expressing your optimal capacity. If you face too many obstacles and you feel disheartened and unhappy at work, and that mood is with you all the time, then meditation is likely not to be strengthened by your engagement in the world. But if we are working in a way whereby the experience of contact with the environment is enlivening, then that's a very helpful support for seeing the co-emergent non-duality of experience. If we're practicing according to the higher tantras or Mahamudra or Dzogchen, it's very important not to insult the world. If you think this is a terrible place full of problems, then you're settling yourself inside a judgment. Then you're in the kind of basic Dharma idea that you need to get out of samsara. But in the higher tantras and Dzogchen and so on, the way we get out of samsara is not to go somewhere else, but is to release ourselves from the dualistic judgment which polarizes samsara and nirvana. And the difficulties of life can be very helpful. If you have a horrible boss, you see this person is just rubbish. They shouldn't be in that post. When thoughts like that arise in the mind, you have to see them arising in the mind. So this is a dance. This is a pas de deux, the particular energetic expression of the boss evokes in you these counter gestures of contempt and disgust. Although it's difficult to believe, your horrible boss probably has some friends. Not everybody thinks he's horrible or she is horrible. So just by being aware of your intense opinions, you can see, oh, I am shrinking my world. You don't have to block the negative feeling which arises when you have to listen to your boss talking. The task is to allow it to arise and vanish. The boss is effortlessly unpleasant. So without attachment, without involvement, you allow the experience to go by. You don't have to solidify your definite knowledge of who this person is. So when you recognize that you're doing that, then you see, oh, this is attachment. This is something I am doing. This is a pattern of interpretation arising in my mind and one I am familiar with. So if you stay present with whatever is arising in the moment, without merging into it or rejecting it, you allow it to arise and pass. And then work is also part of your Dharma path. Then there's another question regarding chöd. Is chöd different from the Christian idea of self-sacrifice? It is completely different. For the Christian, they sacrifice themselves. So the sacrifice comes on them. When you do chöd, you eject your awareness from the body into the form of the Dakini, and she then chops up the body At that point, the body is not yourself, or rather the body as the self is being sacrificed, but you as awareness are not the self. Self is quite a complicated term. I am holding my pen. I am putting the pen down. I is there referring to the site of an activity. Or I might say, I'm tired of life and I want to kill myself. Self there has a much more dense signification. Self is a way of referring to all that I am. I've had enough of being me. As if I am merged in this substantial formation. It is who and what I am. We also have the idea of the self as a kind of soul or spirit, my true self. That true self could be taken as some substantial essence, which will continue as itself, as a particular entity. But in Dzogchen, we say the essence of ourself is emptiness. So if you look into yourself, into your mind, the one who is experiencing all this, you don't find anything. And yet there is all this experience occurring. The knower, I, me, myself, on one level, cannot be known. If I know that I have a lot of work to do, I know something about me, but the work is not who I really am, truly am. When you see what is the core essence of myself, we find nothing. But this nothing is inseparable from awareness, which illuminates all the possibilities of our life. So when you see that yourself is already non-existent and in no way discoverable, there is nothing to sacrifice. And when you experience how you manifest in different situations, these patterns are unpredictable. So as essence, you don't find anything. And as manifestation, you don't find anything knowable, predictable, definable. Because how I am depends on what happens around me. So in that sense, my self is co-emergent with the environment. So the notion of a self-sacrifice depends on an individual isolated self, which is to be maintained. Then there's another subsection to that question. Is the fearlessness and equanimity from chöd an acceptance that lets evil win? Well, this implies that life is an endless struggle between good and bad. This is the Manichaean influence on Christianity, in which these two basic principles of light and dark are endlessly engaged in a battle for supremacy. In Buddhism, there isn't the notion of evil in the sense of the devil. There are many disturbed energy formations like the local gods in Tibet. And if you get involved with them, you get psychic turbulence. But from the Buddhist point of view, the root of suffering is unawareness and attachment, craving. And unawareness is not a separate domain. It's not that we are living in one really shitty world and we have to get to a better place, but our own materializing projections create a density to our experience which is problematic for us. If you don't see the open ground of how you are arising moment by moment, then of course you find yourself thinking, I'm real and everything around me is real, and I want the good things and I don't want the bad things. So equanimity from the Buddhist point of view is not chasing the happy times and not being frightened of the bad times, but just being open to seeing them as the empty appearances and experiences that they are. Okay, so then the next question. Some writers stress the need for advanced meditative accomplishment before entering Dzogchen. You do not. Why? Now, in the Buddhist tradition, we talk of paths, stages, vehicles. Therefore, it's concerned with progress. So how will I know if I am making progress? I need to see if I have certain qualities. If you read the hagiographies of the great yogis and saints of the past, they didn't all have the same qualities. Some wanted a lot of sex, some ate a lot, some drank a lot, some slept a lot. Oh, trying to work out who other people are is always a big problem. When will I be ready to study Dzogchen? Who should decide? Papa, mama. If you are relying on mama and papa, then you are not adult. And probably you have to be adult to practice Dzogchen. But how can I trust my own mind? I already made so many mistakes. Well, do you think if you were able to get closer to your mind and see how your mind is actually functioning, you would make fewer mistakes? If you think the answer to that is yes, then you perhaps need some support for getting close to your mind and seeing how it functions. And that is what we call Dzogchen. So starting with Dzogchen is not a bad idea. Oh, but you won't be able to understand it. Who knows? Who knows? The mind is very, very strange. In Tibet, there were many stories of people who had sudden fear or difficult situations, and it brought a moment of enlightenment to them. In East Tibet, near where Sialama's monastery was, there was a cowherd who had taken his cattle out on the hill. And in the afternoon, when the sun was hot, he had a sleep, and one of the cows walking by kicked him in the head with its hoof. And he went unconscious for a bit. And when he woke up, he had a very sore head, but he picked up some little stones and he started drawing on a rock. Then when he went home, when he took the cows home at the end of the day, he took some of the hair from the cow and dipped it in ink and started drawing. And Sialama said that he developed by himself, without any teaching, into this amazing Tanka painter who could paint so many tiny little people standing around Padmasambhava in Zangdok Parli. So if a cow can give that kind of blessing, who knows what blessings you have already received in your life? We should always seek to go deep if possible. Death is coming. And if you at least have some sense of your mind as emptiness, that will be very, very helpful. The danger with Dzogchen is that you can learn many, many words and a lot of almost like theory, and that becomes a kind of inoculation against awakening. So our task is to stay fresh and to be curious and really observe and not assume. So then, how to deal with people and situations which awaken karmic patterns in us of great intensity? The first thing is, as much as possible, not to enter into judgment. So if you feel, just stop it, you're annoying me, you might then become grateful if you do practice. You have annoyed me. I am not an autonomous self. I am impacted by things which happen. I am participating in interaction. Your annoying comment and my annoyed feeling are co-emergent. This is beautiful. Yeah. If you see what is happening, it's always beautiful. You make me sad. How lovely. It means I don't have to make myself sad. You also can help, but I don't want to be sad. Come on, eat your vegetables. You have to have some sadness every day. It's like that. Subject and world are moving together all the time. Don't solidify it, don't reify it, but keep it in the dynamic flow of arising and passing. So the first thing is to accept sometimes I'm sad, sometimes I'm angry, maybe murderously angry. If you observe what happens in that moment, suddenly you are filled with this intense emotion. In fact, you are this emotion. If you really observe that, if you're present with that, then you see directly, I am not a thing. I don't have a substantial existence. I am a site of co-emergent display. Oh, if you can do that, then it's very helpful. And you can practice just by watching different films on the television. Look at the comedy, see what it's like to laugh and be filled, ho, ho, ho. Then you look at such a film where there is some emotional cruelty. You see, oh, something is changing in me. It's not that I am a cup that is filled with tea and then it's filled with coffee and then it's filled with juice. That's an interpretation based on saying, I feel sad, I feel happy. But if you really look, there is jealousy, there is pride, there is happiness. Then we see this aspect of our energy, which is called dang in Tibetan. With this familiar example that if you put a crystal ball on a red cloth, it will look a little red. If you put it on a blue cloth, it looks a bit blue. The crystal itself is neither red nor blue. So in watching different kinds of movies, one moment you feel fear, then you feel desire, then you feel sadness. It is like your mind is this available space, like the crystal ball, suddenly filled with different colors. So that's very, very helpful for practice. The self is not something apart from the other. This is, when we have that, we have duality. In fact, self and other are born together, and they are ceaselessly mutually influencing. So by staying present in interaction, the emptiness or the non-existence of a separate self is revealed directly. So this is next is a similar question. How to be in the world with others, maintaining the structure of my life without organizing events around my egoic intentions. So this takes us right back to Buddha Shakyamuni when he was explaining the middle way. That when you are tuning a stringed instrument, you don't want it too tight and you don't want the string to be too loose. So musicians often have to retune their instrument when they're going to play a different kind of music. So if you're going into a situation where you will be in contact with people you find provocative, then probably you should loosen the strings a bit. Because if they're very tight, you'll be vibrating too much. And if you're in a situation where everything is kind of chaotic and all over the place, you might need to sharpen up. It's not that you're tightening and loosening yourself, you're tightening and loosening the membrane of receptivity, like taking a drum and warming it before you start beating it. the key point is, don't take up a fixed position. Don't be always yourself. If you try to hold yourself in place, then how will you experience co-emergence? We're not the master, but we don't have to be the slave. But we're flexibly working with circumstances. So that requires us to open up our potential, to bring forward the possibility of having different ways of engaging with the world. So the first thing is, you have to start with yourself. If you're the sort of person who's always joking and laughing, then probably you need to encourage yourself to be a bit more serious, because you're going to die. And if you're the person who takes everything very seriously and is prone to anxiety and worry, then you have to remember that everything is illusion and laugh at yourself a bit more. You can't do these things out of a rule book. You have to observe your body, the muscular tension, the shifts in breathing, and so on, and allow yourself to move forward into the areas that maybe scare you a little bit. Somebody has said that they came across a piece of writing that said that Zangdok Parli, the place where Padmasambhava is now, is also inhabited by rakshasas, who only see Guru Rinpoche as a harsh rakshasa king. A rakshasa indicates a merciless cannibal, and that ordinary people who aspire to be born there risk fulfilling their aspiration, but being born as a rakshasa who doesn't recognize Padmasambhava as a guru and doesn't experience the realm as pure. Padmasambhava went to Zangdok Parli a long time ago, 1200 years ago at least. So he's had plenty of time to soften the hearts of the people who live there. When we pray to be born in Zangdok Parli, we see it as a pure land which is not different from Amitabha's Dzogchen. Sometimes small children get frightened by things that they see. And it's the job of the parents to help them calm down, so that as their fear goes down, they can see more clearly that there's no real danger. For example, in the summertime, if you go to the sea, you see some little children running into the sea, laughing and joking, and others they get their feet wet and they go back very quickly. So some children need more reassurance to reduce their anxiety and start to be able to make friends with the sea. And this is the function of Padmasambhava, that he comes into the world in order to reduce anxiety. So we have to have faith that if we are close to Padmasambhava, we don't feel so much anxiety. Anxiety arises from misperception. In the whole basis of the Buddha lands or the pure lands is that when you are born there, the power of the environment is such that whatever your own neurotic tendencies are, they will not be able to pull the environment into their own distorted vision. But rather, on the contrary, the power of the environment will be able to take people's attention out through their senses to the beauty, to the sounds of Dharma being sung by the birds, the beauty of the flowers, the shining presence of the great masters who are there. And that will allow one to settle into one's own true condition. Of course, if you have no faith or devotion, then it's very difficult to experience that transformation. But if you don't have that devotion, you're unlikely to be born there. You would just be born in the 6 realms of samsara. So another question. For quite some time, I experienced a tilt to the nihilistic pole. As a result, I experienced a general lack of motivation in my life. If everything is impermanent and empty, like the breath of wind, why should I put effort into something? In a sense, this is the problem of intoxication with ideas. If everything is impermanent. No, everything is impermanent. If you are present in your life, you will see moment by moment, everything is changing. There's nothing to grasp. So why should I put energy into anything? Maybe you don't have to. You have to do some things, you have to wipe your bum after you have a shit, but maybe not much more than that. It depends how you want to live. What's the point? The point of everything in samsara is that the point is generated out of concepts. The point of liberation is that it's not resting on concepts. So if you think about Dharma too much, your intelligence can go into the Dharma and turn the elixir or the amrita of liberation into poison. Well, there's another question here from the same person. Why strive for virtue? So basically, why is helping better than harming? Then you have to look at yourself and think, do I prefer to be healthy and happy or sick and unhappy? If this is too abstract for you, if you have a friend, ask them to slap you 3 times on the face very hard. Then when the skin is stinging, then you can think, oh, pleasure or not? Would you like it to happen again? Maybe not. So if you want happiness and you imagine other people want happiness, well, virtue is the method for generating the conditions for happiness. Apart from all the teachings on karma, and the Buddhist view of the world is very different from the Western view. Karma means the world is generated out of mental interpretation and the emotional concomitants. So the fuel which generates the formations of our world is not some materialistic shift of dead patterns, but is actually the lively, energetic engagement of the mind with what arises in the mind. And we know that when we feel happy, everything around us seems a little bit light, a little bit more transparent. And when we feel sad or unloved, then the world becomes more thick and heavy. So Amitabha is this Buddha of limitless light. Light, illumination, transparency, freedom of movement. These are things which appeal to us a lot. Now we have many refugees wanting to come to Europe. That's because they're often coming from countries which have dictatorships. So it could be that this nihilistic turn is a kind of a petty bourgeois malady. Maybe what you need is to sleep out in the rain and the cold for a couple of nights and then think, oh, warm house is good. On a relative truth level, there is a big difference between pleasure and pain. So the reason we do formal practice is to develop one-pointed focused attention so that we're not distracted. On the basis of this, we are able to look and see the actual qualities of what is occurring. This is vipassana. Then we see, oh, there is a difference between grasping at things and trying to hang on to them, and being open to whatever is happening. So the point here is, don't stay in theory, in thinking big Dharma ideas and imagining this or that, or it's all emptiness. But if you look directly yourself, you will see that as long as you're in duality, virtue is better than harm. Then another question. The more I practice or listen to the teachings and reflect about them, it seems to me that the struggle and the power of the ego is strengthening. Do I do something wrong? I would imagine that it's not that the ego is getting stronger, but that you're more able to see how the ego functions. When you're just immersed in the thoughts and feelings which arise and you're blown this way and that, because you're moving with these arising experiences, you don't quite feel the impact of them. What? The more the mind is a little bit spacious and therefore receptive, and the less distracted you are, so the more clarity you have, then you become aware that you are not one person. From the general Buddhist teachings, we have the idea that we are the 5 heaps or skandhas, these different components of ourselves. Sorry, and we're aware of the 5 poisons operating, in the 5 elements moving. These force fields are often disharmonious. We could have a double perception of a situation. So when I go up my local high street, I see beggars sitting in the road. I see that they're cold. I give them some money. I wish them well. But I also think, for fuck's sake, what are you doing? There's a kind of irritation. This is, what way to live is this? You don't have to be sitting in the road. So that there is a warmth and compassion towards them, but also an irritation. Both arise. And these divided, complex feelings are often moving around. So I think then what we need to do is to relax more and to open our compositional tendency, our judging, shaping tendency, and then allow the complexity of existence to move. And allow these flavors of friendliness and irritation and anger and so on just to arise and pass through. One of the first things that Sia Lama said to me was, the Buddha is not a nice man. It's not about being nice and polite all the time and behaving in a way that everyone likes. We're trying to become more aware of how not to be at the mercy of habitual tendencies. Okay, and then we have the last question for today. Could you explain again the 5 questions regarding the mind? Oh, here either you begin with the Guru Yoga of the 3 R, or just by sitting and relaxing and being open. So now we're turning our attention from what arises in the mind, the thoughts, feelings, and so on. And we're attending to who is the one who is aware of the thoughts and feelings and emotions and so on. Does it resemble the phenomena of the world? So when we look around the world, we see things which have a shape and a color. Does my mind have a shape and a color? We look around and we see phenomena. We see tables, chairs, shoes, and so on. Some are big, some are small. Is my mind big? Is it small? When we look in the furniture and so on in our flat or house, we see, oh, this came from my grandmother, this came from IKEA or whatever. So the possessions have come from somewhere. does my mind come from somewhere? What is the source of my mind? And now everything is there in your flat, so it's here. The kitchen things are in the kitchen, the bathroom things are in the bathroom. So is my mind here? I seem to have a mind. Mind is operating, but where is it? Where is it when it's here? And then we have a trash can, a dustbin for putting out things which we don't want, and they're taken away by the dustman. In the same way, when the thoughts and emotions leave us, do they go somewhere else? Do they go off to be recycled? So the function of looking in this way is to see, is my mind a thing that belongs in the family of things? Or is it something radically different? So that's the central point that we want to see. It is my mind. Why is it I don't see my mind? Why is it my attention is always on the thoughts and feelings and so on? So this investigation will pay you great dividends. It's the basis for freeing your mind from the false belief that you are a thing. Okay, so that is our time for this evening. And we have some other Zoom weekend teachings coming, and also some other question and answers and book launches. They're all described on the website. Okay, so bye-bye for now. Bye-bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, James.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. 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 Bye-bye.
Hasta luego. Bye-bye, James. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye, James.
Bye.
Ciao.
Bye.
Cheers,
Adios.
James.